Today, I'd actually like to start your day off with a story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far across the globe, there lived a girl who listened to stories every night before bed. With every tale she listened to, they began with the same, once upon a time, where the good people weren't so hard to tell from the other not so good people because they were beautiful, and because of this, they were granted to live happily ever after. That girl who listened to those stories was none other than me. Now, I know what you're thinking. What on earth is a 17-year-old girl doing up here talking about fairy tales? Such absurd fantasies that this girl should have outgrown years ago. Well, I started to see it in a different light. How little things, subtle things, can be appreciated because they highlight qualities that essentially make them larger than life. It's very similar to a painting, actually, where every brushstroke is small yet significant because at that moment, I'm sure, very sure, that it's captured a very sincere human emotion. Now, I came across this book. It's called The Witch Must Die by Sheldon Cashton. I also came across this article that said, or the quote that said that the beauty about fairy tales is that they are able to take into multiple existences. Now, that thought stayed on my head a little bit, and I started to think of the many variations of fairy tales that existed, and that they offer you such a big opportunity for personal involvement, that it became clear to me why people might think that they shape our morals. They are able to evolve with our society through photography, design, advertisements, and clothing. However, there are some parents that were complaining that children no longer saw any moral values or lessons from listening to these fairy tales. Now, some might argue that adults see reality a little differently than children, but I'm not really one to lecture anyone in this room about how adults see reality differently because I myself haven't delved into that reality yet. But from what I know, being a toddler, I've been introduced into this new realm of fantasy where I knew what was definitely good or what was definitely bad, or so I thought I did. There was something so evil about darkness, the color black, and when there was light, beautiful gardens, such an extravagant picture, and white, for purity, you felt the goodness come in and rushing through the pages. However, there were no shades of gray. As a toddler, gray wasn't really in vogue. So you might question, instead of not questioning the goodness in the villain, what causes this realization? Is it when a child first experiences lying, jealousy, first starting to discover that humans are just naturally selfish, or learning how to forgive because we are not heroes or heroines that are perfect, and no one is a villain. We are all flawed human beings. And so a child becomes like Alice, venturing through Wonderland. With every step comes new discovery, new factual evidence, like seeing the world as a 3-year-old again. However, its fictionalized qualities fail to meet the logic through the math and sciences. It just doesn't work. I'm also old enough to realize that these tales are a tad bit superficial, but in some ways they are able to mimic our society. Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? As much as we'd hate to admit it, importance in appearance is greatly placed in our society. Take a person walking into a job interview. First impressions are crucial. There's envy in Cinderella. How many times have we felt, I wish I was her, I wish I was him, that the grass is greener on the other side? I'm sure most of us can relate to that, which is probably what most girls were thinking when Kate Middleton got married to Prince William. But anyway, there's also gluttony in Hansel and Gretel and deceit in the Frog Prince. Yet the most shocking of them all has probably got to be Little Red Riding Hood. It reminds me of the allegory of the cave from Plato, an idea of an increased awareness, how a child's innocence is depleted through time. And when I was little, I thought Little Red Riding Hood was supposed to be a story teaching children not to talk to strangers and to listen to your parents. However, that wasn't really the case. As Sheldon Cashton and many other authors wrote, Charles Perrault actually meant this to be a story of a young girl on the verge of womanhood. How, as you grow up, there are many different paths along the way, dangers, and so the wolf becomes labeled the seducer, and Little Red Riding Hood and her little cape becomes a symbol of virginity, of menstrual blood. And so, right there, you can see an increased awareness, being able to understand this, but not really when you're 3. But another way to look at this is our reality in this little bubble. And everything that is fantastical and an element of fantasy is out of this world, out of this bubble that we live in. If that is the case, I myself am very thankful that there are such people who are creative enough to pull out such fantastical elements and pull them into our reality. Now, my iPod is filled with classical music. It's not really your typical 17-year-old girl iPod, but I also have this bizarre hobby of mine where I close my eyes and I scribble to the way the music takes me, and by tracing the lines at the end, it is able to tell me a story. And so I'm going to show you a video of snippets of me doing that. Now, why I decided to share this to you is because personally, without fairy tales, I really don't think I would have been able to imagine a world outside the one I am in today. Fairy tales have been able to introduce for me the idea of creativity, of curiosity, and imagination, which I think are 3 such essential and important things that make this world go round. I truthfully thank God every day that we have been given gifts of wonder and awe, that despite the many disastrous things that are happening in our planet right now, there are still so many beautiful elements that are evidence that there is still magic left in this world. It just really depends on how you perceive things. There is the importance of imagination and curiosity. Imagination will able to lead you into new ideas that along with your curiosity, will able to bring you to your future. People have been able to dream of the impossible and make the impossible possible. To create an aircraft, lift people off the ground, skyscrapers, or this tiny little thing that stores bajillions of music. That's a lot of Vivaldi. But imagination is also so important because it is able to create for us a world larger than the one we are in today, larger than life. And so imagination is also so important because they create ideas worth spreading. Thank you very much.